Morning,
Yo,
bro.
what's good?
Or evening. Always
Yeah,
trips me out.
4 p.m. here.
We're missing LLB today as well.
Mm-hmm.
Was it three of? Oh, it was three of us last week, wasn't it? I was just getting
Yeah.
mad connection issues. I think we're all good this week, though. I've got my broadband back, so
Oh,
I don't have to wait
nice.
10 seconds to hear you, man, respond.
Yeah, that delay
That was
was
tripping
nuts.
me
I
out.
can't lie.
But we got through it. How you
Mm-hmm.
been anyway?
Everything's all good. How about yourself?
All good as well, man. A bit off track this week. I was in London last Sunday, and then
Yeah.
I ended up staying the night. Had a session on Monday in London at the Splice Studio.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a real nice setup there. It's at, you might have been there before, Tile Yard. There's quite a few people based
Is
around
that in
there, like
King's Cross?
Spitfire.
Like
All I
close
know is
by to
Tile
King's
Yard.
Cross?
I just put the
Yeah.
postcode in and drive there, but it's like,
Oh, fair.
it seems like it's like almost like a central hub. Not all in the same building, but that area has a lot of companies there, like Spitfire Audio are based there. Splice have their studio. I think R14 is there. There's a couple other people as well. It seems like a really
Okay.
good area for music.
I think I've been there once for Spitfire Audio, so I remember
Mm.
remember it. Yeah, loads of studio. Even I think there might be a couple of record labels there as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. It's a cool little area. But yeah, the Splice Studio is sick. They just had this real nice room with just tons of analog synths and compressors. They're just all like the vintage hardware, and then like
Yeah.
a few different rooms for recording instruments. So I spent the day there, and then I was recording a masterclass with one of the engineers there for
Yeah.
my creators club. But we spent like 4 hours just trying to get audio from his computer because the setup's like so big and there's so many different cables running through everywhere. It's so hard to get like OBS set up to actually capture the audio.
Oh man.
So we had to, in the end, we had to. Have you seen that plugin from Waves called Stream? That new
No.
plugin. So basically, it's supposed to be for live cook-ups. So you can pull up Stream on the master, and then
Mm-hmm.
you could just scan the QR code or send a link or whatever. And then you create like the send version on your side, and then you open the receive version on the other side, or you just do it in a browser and you can hear all the audio coming in like real time from the master. So we ended up having to
Oh,
use that and then
perfect.
capturing it on mine. But then
Yeah.
we were having issues with the audio even coming through that, and like my Waves plugin licenses not working on my laptop. So, bro, we spent 4 hours
Oh,
just trying to figure that out, and then finally got into it. So, and then
damn.
driving back from London to Manny. So I think I got home at like 2 a.m., maybe 3 a.m. Monday morning. So
Yeah.
my whole week's just been, once you have that one night that kind of throws you off schedule, my whole week's
Hmm.
just been messed up. I've been waking up late, going gym late, and just, yeah, just proper fucks with me.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's annoying.
I don't know how people do those sessions where it's just like, I don't know what time I'm working today. It could be in the afternoon, could be in the evening, could be early hours in the
Yeah.
morning, and then
When
every
the
day is just
schedule's
different. That must be so bad for your body.
yeah, when the schedule's so up in the air like that and no routine,
Yeah,
it can be difficult.
yeah.
So
But
was
it was good.
you in the Splice Studios doing stuff for Splice or for your stuff?
A bit of both, really. So potentially working on something new with them,
Hmm.
but then also the engineer was working on something for me and my creators club. So a bit of both, to be honest. So we got
Nice.
we got all the filming done. Cause see, the guy I linked up with, he does a lot of engineering work for labels and for Splice, obviously, and he runs some of the in-house labels there. And then he was, yeah, so I wanted to show people what the process looks like when you export your stems and send it to an engineer. Because obviously
Hmm.
we make our beats in FL and Logic, and we do a bit of mixing and leveling and everything, but then no one really understands what happens when you actually export the stems and send it to an engineer. Because most people in the UK, most engineers, they'll just bring in like the WAV file, get the artist to record over it, and they'll just mix the vocals. But not many people are actually taking the individual stems and mixing everything in one piece, are they? Or it's rare that you
True.
see it, and if so, then they're charging a lot more. So he was just showing that process and what he does to the stems and mastering stage and everything like that.
Okay. Nice, man.
What was good, yeah. It's interesting. I think people will like it as well.
Yeah, that
Kind of
sounds
broke it
super
down into
helpful.
maybe like 7 different videos, just almost like a mini course, but it'll just be free for everyone in the creators club.
Hmm. Yeah, that'd be
What have you
sick.
had on this week?
This week, I have literally just been making loads of music and finishing up some videos. I've got a few videos that are on the way, but it's one of them ones that you have to film in parts
Mm,
because it's a few different things that are happening at the same time. So I've just been filming my
yeah,
videos and slowly like editing it piece by piece, sending it off to
right.
be edited piece by piece. And then when I'm not doing that, then I'm literally just making music,
Yeah,
and that's it
got
really.
you. I saw that video you did in China. That's almost going viral, isn't it? How many views is that on now? That
Yeah,
one
that's
went
doing really
crazy.
well. Over 200K views now
That's sick. In
in
what, like a
about two
week or
weeks.
2 weeks?
Two
Yeah.
weeks, yeah.
I bet it's good to see something like that, isn't it? Because I think we've all been through a stage recently where we're hitting like eights and sevens, some
Yeah,
tens.
man. I was
That
on a
must have hit
bad
number
run for a
one.
while. There
Yeah,
was a time where my videos was like 10 out of 10, maybe six or eight videos in a row. But like
really.
each 10 out of 10 was getting worse and worse and worse.
Mm,
Like it was dying
yeah,
off. But then every now and again, you just hit a home run, which is cool. It's nice to see.
yeah, yeah. It brings, it just brings you back around, doesn't it? Which you can kind of get into a little rut if you're just putting all that work in for videos and then they're just not performing as you'd
Yeah.
expect. And then you have that one that does really well, and it's like, all right, we're back on now. We're back on top.
hmm I mean, yeah, my channel's always been going in ups and downs. It will have really high highs and then sometimes some really low lows. But
Yeah.
if you take a step back and look, it's kind of pretty much just straight, if that makes sense. Like just
Yeah.
consistently ticking over. It's not one of them channels that has like super fast growth
Hmm.
or like constantly viral videos. It's just very steady.
And it's still growing because it's not like subscribers drop. It's just like the growth rate slows down. So it's like you'll get some months where your subscribers growing like that, then like that. But over time, like you said, it probably is just like steadily going up,
Yeah,
isn't it?
just slowly ticking. But yeah, hopefully 500K subscribers by the end of the year. We'll see.
That'll be sick. You
That'd
gonna
be
do
nice.
anything to celebrate?
I have nothing planned to be honest with you. I think the big
It's a big
milestone for
milestone.
everyone is still that milli.
Yeah.
But at the rate my
It's
channel's
crazy that there's
growing,
no in between plaque. You get the
yeah,
100K
there
and
is
then a
none.
milli. There should definitely be a 500K.
But then after the milli, it's just 10 mil, and then you get the next plaque. And
Hmm.
when you think about that, a mil to 10 mil, that's a huge amount of growth.
Yeah.
But
Because
I
how many
guess
years
on,
has it taken you to get to 500?
oh man, it's all this time. I started taking YouTube seriously at the end of 2017, so
Hmm.
7-ish years.
Right. Okay. And then potentially another 7 years to get that milli plaque. Although it
Who
probably
knows,
won't be
man?
like that. It'll probably be
You
sooner than that.
you never know though. That's the thing because 0 to 100K, people usually say is like the longest. Like it takes
Yeah.
forever, and then 100 to 1 million usually is meant to be really really quick.
Mm. Yeah, maybe.
It took me 3 years to get to 100K, and it's coming up to like 3 years to get to 500K. So we'll see. That's the
Oh,
thing
okay,
though.
yeah.
You with YouTube, I feel like within the next 2 years, you don't really know what changes the platform will make, which will change everything. Because
Yeah.
when I hit 100K, there was no such thing as shorts, or short
Mm,
form
that's
content
true.
wasn't even that popular. So it was just long form.
Yeah.
And then shorts kind of changed the game for everyone. Then the algorithm could change where like it favors me, or I have to change my strategy a little bit if I really want to continue that growth. We'll see.
And it seems crazy that we can have all these subscribers, but it's like YouTube just only recommends your videos to a small portion of your audience. And depending on whether they click on it or not,
Yeah, I think
they'll show
they've
it to less
changed that
people.
now. Back
Have
in the
they?
days, it was all about subscribers, but I think it's not about subscribers at all. I think it's individual videos, and they just show that
Yeah.
to whoever they feel like will benefit from that piece of content or who's
Yeah,
interested
definitely.
the most. Because even on my timeline, I always see videos with less than 200 views, people with like 100 views. And I'm
Yeah.
even now seeing videos recommended from 3 years ago, really
It's
old
mad, isn't it?
videos. Yeah, not even
And
new
most of the
videos
people on my
sometimes.
timeline, I'm not even subscribed to. I'll see a couple,
Yeah.
like obviously I'll see like the usuals like you and LB and other producers that I watch sometimes, but the majority of the videos on there, I just never even heard of them. Just like you
Hmm.
said, it just might be something that we're interested in.
Yeah, and interested in at that moment as well, because there's
Mm,
sometimes where I'll watch a video and I'll watch like three or four from that one creator, and
yeah,
then now my timeline is constantly from this creator. But if I don't watch their videos again, maybe it was just that brief moment I was interested in that subject. If I don't click on their
yeah,
videos again, then I'll just never see them again.
right. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I wonder what it was like. I can't, because I can remember the first ever video I watched on YouTube, and I didn't know what the platform was or anything. Someone was just
Mm.
showing me a fight on YouTube, just from some guys near us, and that was the first ever video I watched on YouTube. But I can't remember if they even had like a proper home screen like that where they were recommending videos, or if it was literally just a search box
Yeah,
and some other stuff. I can't even remember.
nah, so long ago.
I'd like to see the progression, just like over the years and how they've changed it.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see. But yeah, it definitely feels like now it's same with any platform really. It's just really about interest based stuff, isn't it? So whatever you tend to click on, whatever lures you in, they're gonna
Hmm.
keep recommending stuff like that.
Yeah, man. Have you have you seen that Gary V released a new book where he kind of
Oh
talks about a
yeah,
lot
I
of this
think I
stuff?
did actually, because I heard him talking about it a while back, and then I listened to him on the Modern Wisdom podcast, and then I think he mentioned it in that, but I don't know if it was out at that point. But it's out now.
Yeah.
So it's something
Um,
about day trader, or
Day
what's the
trade and
title now?
attention, and he basically just
That's it.
talks about this kind of, yeah, like the. I guess he's always the guy to go to when it comes to these social media stuff,
Yeah,
YouTube, TikTok,
100%.
all that kind of stuff. So
Did you listen to the audiobook
yeah,
or
I listened to the
physical?
audiobook.
And is
I
it
need to
him
take it
talking?
in
Yeah.
again though.
Is it him talking?
Yeah, there's a lot of
Okay.
information in there. It's one of them ones where I need to listen again. I need to take notes and then
Yeah.
try and implement.
I'm definitely gonna listen to that. I've read his other books, not all of them, but I read his first one, I think, and then his Crush It book. I think that might be the only two I've read, but I'm
Hmm.
definitely gonna read this one because, like with his older ones, there'll be some gems in there, but because everything changes, I didn't want to go back and then be like, this information's not really valid now. But
Yeah,
yeah, maybe I should, but I'll definitely listen to the new one. I like it when the author actually reads the audio version as well. I hate when I buy a book and then you buy it because you like this certain person, you want to hear what he has to say, and then it's just some
hmm,
random voiceover that's done the whole thing.
yeah,
Almost takes
uh,
away the I don't know, it takes away
definitely.
the enjoyment a bit.
The voice of an audiobook is make or break. You get the wrong voice on
Yeah,
there, it's like, oh, I can't really listen to this one.
yeah, definitely, and it
It's
could
just
be a
boring.
book that everyone's recommended that could be amazing to read, but just because you don't like the voice that's reading it, you're like, "Ah, I can't even do it."
Yeah. But you know what? Now with all this AI stuff, surely there must be an option where you could just choose your voice.
Mm.
That would be sick.
Yeah, that would
Because
be good
then
actually. You'd
you
have like
might land on
Morgan
this
Freeman
random
reading
guy.
everything
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
you.
exactly. Or you might even just land on one person that you like everything he reads. So you're just like, fuck it, this is my guy. He reads all my books to me.
Yeah, he's the guy that reads my bedtime stories. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, there
exactly.
should be. I'm sure that will come out eventually because it's just getting
Yeah,
way more powerful, isn't it?
definitely.
Do you when you're reading, do you only read nonfiction or do you read fiction as well?
Nah, usually I'm reading stuff that I'm gonna learn from. I don't really have the
Yeah,
attention span to read fiction. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I hear that.
I don't think I've read a fiction book since. Well, I read The Alchemist a long time ago. That's kind of fiction,
Oh yeah, yeah, I read that.
but that's it, really.
I had because I was the same. Like I felt like if I was gonna read a fiction book, I'd be wasting my time because I'm not learning anything from it. And then my girlfriend's the opposite. She only reads fiction. Like she hates reading nonfiction. I've
Yeah,
tried to get her to read some stuff, but she's just not having it. She's no interest.
yeah,
So we're like opposites. But then one time I was like, right, let's just try it. You give me a fiction book, and I'll give you a non-fiction book. And I read her fiction book, and I can't lie, I actually enjoyed it. It was like a good read. And then I
yeah,
went back and got some of the classics like that Animal Farm. and I'm reading 1984 at the moment.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm not. I'm more into them now. I can't lie,
Yeah,
because I always thought you wouldn't learn anything from fiction, but if you read the right fiction books, everything has a deeper meaning, doesn't it? So I think he was talking to Tim Ferriss about it actually on that Modern Wisdom podcast, and they were just saying like, whenever you read a non-fiction book, the way that they try to get you to remember stuff is by telling a story. Have you
yeah.
noticed that? Like they'll share some facts and tell a story, or the other way around. So then, if you're just reading the fiction, it's like you read the story, but then there's stuff in there that you kind of learn from it without even
Hmm.
realizing. It's like because the stories just have hidden, like hidden meanings. So once I heard that and them talking about that, I was like, all right, let me just give it a go.
Yeah,
Because Tim Ferriss, I really like him. I think he's just a smart guy. So I'll take his advice.
yeah, no, 100. Especially those books, 1984 and Animal Farm. Those are
Have you read them before?
I read them in secondary school. They made us do
Yeah.
Animal Farm in school.
Mm.
1984, I was forced to read it, but that's why I think I don't like fiction, because when I was younger, I was forced to read these kind of books, and I
Yeah.
didn't really enjoy it. I didn't really take it in, to be honest with you. I
Probably don't
prefer,
get it as a kid either.
yeah, I prefer to read stuff that give me information. But I'm not gonna lie to you as well. These days, I'm really trying to be particular, because a lot of times you can get stuck in this like self-help, reading loads of self-help books, and sometimes they
Yeah.
contradict each other. Sometimes one will say you should do this and live your life like this, and one will
Yeah.
say live your life like this. And you kind of need to think for yourself. You're your own human, you're your own person. You can take
Yeah.
lessons and stuff and learn, but also like you really have to make it work for yourself. You can't really
Yeah.
take any
100%.
book just like pure. You know what I'm trying to say?
That's where I used to go wrong as well. Because I didn't always read as a kid. I only got into reading properly in the last like 4 years, maybe, just when I was
Yeah.
setting up the business. Because at that point, I was like, right, I just need to educate myself and actually study. And then I really got into it. Um, but yeah, I used to do the same thing. You'd read one book and you think because it's in a book, everything must be facts and everything
Hmm.
must be the way, like, must be the path you need to follow. And then, yeah, you read something else that contradicts the last thing. It's the same with podcasts, like we spoke before. Like, you hear all these experts talking, but everyone's an expert these days, right? So you hear one
Oh
person
man.
saying, you should train like this, you should eat like this. And then the next person's like, no, you should train like this, you should eat like this, you should do business like this. And like, everyone's just
Yeah.
got their expert opinion. But yeah, you're right. It's like no one really talks about how we're all individuals and what works for one person isn't going to work for the other. So everyone thinks that they've got this secret answer, but really it's like down to the individual. And that's like diet training. Obviously, there's some principles you can follow, but for the most part, it's like you can make it happen in so many different ways. It's not like it's just one rule for all.
Hmm. No, 100%. And maybe that should be talked about more, I guess, how to actually apply these certain things.
Yeah,
And I think as well with self development, just because it's a huge market these days, like it's a huge business. So
yeah,
everyone releases a book. Not everyone, but there's a lot of self
there's
development books
loads.
out there.
Hmm.
And there's a reason why there's some that are just timeless.
Yeah,
Whereas like some are just regurgitated information, or they've synthesized it from someone in the past. Now what I'm trying to do
yeah,
as well is just really go back to the old books that were written years ago, or written by someone who's really lived it or really established, where people are
yeah.
taking their ideas and trying to go back to them and really seeing like the root of it, just to try and figure out like a less watered down version of the message.
Yeah, maybe at a time when people weren't trying to capitalize on everyone's depression or anxiety is like the thing in it.
Yeah.
What are some classics for you? Like what are some ones that you've really enjoyed?
I'd say one that I read really early on was The Slight Edge. I think it's by a guy called Jeff Olson.
Mm,
And this was around the time I was learning to make beats. So it kind of changed everything for me. But all
yeah,
essentially it is about is you need to put your effort into something and do it consistently. So
yeah,
just do an hour or two a day of something, and over the course of 5 to 10 years, you'll be good at that. And I applied that to music production when I first started, and kind of just changed
mm,
my mindset on that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was a kid, my dad made me read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and
Oh
that
yeah,
definitely,
that's a classic.
man, yeah. When I was in year eight, year nine, I was selling my sweets because of that book. I was trying to,
I wish I
hustle,
read
make
that
some
from a
money.
young age.
Another book that I really like, that I find myself keep going back to, it's more spiritual, but it's one called Reality Transurfing. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I
It's
don't think so.
it's thick as fuck. It's like this thick,
Mm.
but it's essentially just a philosophy or a way of living. But how can I explain this without it sounding like crazy? Because it's really eye opening. It just gives you, if you're trying to be successful, it just gives you a mindset, I guess.
Yeah. What's it called? I can always check the
Reality
podcast back, but
Transurfing. It's
I'm gonna
by
write
a
it down.
Russian guy and it's translated into English. But for example, like I'll give you an example. One thing he talks about is letting go. So for example, a lot of times, especially in nowadays with social media, people are really all about like hustle culture, hustle
Yeah.
porn, they're calling it. Work, work, work hard, no play, whatever. But he was saying there's like a balance in life where you can want something and you can desire something, but when you want it too much, you create too much friction and you put it on a pedestal in your mind to a point where,
Mm.
on a subconscious level, because it's up there and you're down here, you're never ever going to achieve it. It's too far
Yeah.
away from you. You need to almost like think you are of that success, but at the same time, let go and just
Mm.
trust your path. And you also mentioned something where it's like when you do that as well, it's almost like you don't have confidence that you are actually going to pull it off. So it's
Mm.
always just that thing that will happen, but actually will never, if that makes sense. It
That's
sounds
interesting.
harsh, but I
No,
kind
I can
it
hear
took me a
that.
while to really wrap my head around it to really understand that point. And there's a few more as well. There's this concept of this thing called the pendulum, which is always swinging. And the pendulum
Yeah.
could be something as simple as like everyone tells you to get a job and the pendulum is swinging. And if you interact with that pendulum, doesn't matter if it's negative or positive, all energy is energy. So if you give it any energy at all, the pendulum will keep swinging hard. But if you decide to, so where am I going with this? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. With the pendulum,
Yeah.
when it comes to, like, for example, let's say you have a dream, but everyone keeps telling you to get a job. If you just ignore that pendulum and follow your own path, the pendulum will swing, but it won't swing in your direction. But if you decide to fight back and give it energy, it's going to swing more and more and more until it kind of pulls you
Right.
down.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's from that same book as well.
Yeah, and there's a ton of these little things, like these concepts
Yeah.
that make you think. It took me
I'm
about
gonna
three
give
months
that
to
one a
finish
go.
it, and I had to read it with the audiobook in because it's just a lot of information to take in. I had to
Yeah.
really, like, if I'm going to read this, I need to sit down and do it properly. But I'd
That's one thing
recommend it
with reading,
100%.
isn't it? It's so hard to retain the information, especially these days. I find it
Yeah,
really hard to read something and actually remember what I've read. I let go
yeah.
past 2 pages and be like, man, I can't remember a word of that. Or like I'll say if I'm reading at night, I might read like a chapter just before I go to sleep, and then
Hmm.
my girl will be like, "What were you reading about?" And I'm like, I can't even remember like anything that was in that chapter, like all the gems that I was
Yeah.
reading. I don't know if that's just because our attention span's so short now, or my mind's
Some
elsewhere when I'm reading.
Sometimes that, but sometimes a book can just be boring, bro.
Yeah,
There's some books that I've tried. People recommend it so much, and I try to read it, but I just can't. Like, it's just so boring to me.
yeah. One thing actually, I can actually remember like fiction books. If I'm reading a fiction book, I feel like I can remember way more of that compared to nonfiction because nonfiction is
Yeah.
so factual and it's like education. It's like so much to remember. With a fiction book, as you're reading, you're almost like painting the image in your mind. So because there's no pictures there, you aren't being you're only being told what it looks like to a certain extent. They might describe the room or the character or whatever, but ultimately you're creating this image in your head and you've got to remember this story. So I feel like just because of that, because you're having to think of the image and you're just imagining it the whole way through your reading, it kind of just sticks with you. Like you remember the story, but then with nonfiction, yeah, it's just like here's the facts. blah blah blah, and then
Hmm.
it's because it might seem boring, it's really hard to remember.
Yeah, 100%. What's some books that you've really enjoyed or you would recommend?
So for nonfiction, this is like a really popular one, but I did actually really enjoy it, and it's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That was one
Yeah,
of the first ones that kind of got me into like the self help stuff, and then I started going back and reading some of the other ones. So I did actually really like that one, and then his second one as well. I forgot what the title of it. It's Mark Manson, isn't it? I forgot what
yeah.
the title of his second one is. Um, the world is fucked or something like that. Anyway, so I really like his ideas, and some of like the old ones. I'm listening to one right now called Awareness, which you might like if you're trying to go back to like the old ones. So this is one that Tim Ferriss again. He said that he keeps stacks of them in his house,
Hmm.
and if he has people around, like that's just one of the books that he gifts. I think he always asks that to his guests in his podcast. He always says, if you had to gift a book to someone, what book would it be? So then people ask him that as well, and that's like the book that he gives to people. I think he keeps a few other books as well, just in like stacks of them, just for when, depending on who he's got around. But yeah, I listened to that, and it's a really good one. So awareness, sort of like not giving a fuck. Um, what's some other good ones? Um, Man, it kind of gone out of my head. Obviously, there's business ones as well. Like I've read all of like .com secrets, for example, or the
Oh
Russell
yeah,
Brunson
yeah.
ones. But same
Those are
thing
really
with
good.
those, like you read it and you think, okay, this is like the concept I need to stick to. And then I kind of went with, like, when I was first setting up the business on my site and everything, I based everything off that book. And then Copywriting Secrets is another one that's forward by him, but written by, I can't remember his name. He has something to do with Russell Brunson, I think. So he kind of taught me how to like write emails and landing pages. And I did my whole course page based off that. But now that I look back at the course page, I probably would have changed it. I probably would have changed it because I think just some of the language in there, I'm just not 100% on, if that makes sense. Like I read it thinking, okay, this is like how you sell. But a
Hmm.
lot of it is down to, I don't know, finding like pain points in people and being like, right, okay, like what you're struggling with, like what are really your pain points, and it's almost borderline manipulative, if that makes sense. But I guess all
Yeah,
marketing is, right. There was just
but
certain
that's like
things that,
hardcore. It feels
yeah,
hardcore. It
yeah,
feels very
yeah,
strong. It's almost a conflict between that which works or branding at the same time
yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
reputation.
So I didn't do it to the extreme. Like I don't. It's not like I lied about anything. Like it was educational for sure. But I think because I've just read so much other stuff now, I probably would have worded things a bit differently. But it
Yeah.
it sold well at the time, so that could have worked. So there's some books. Obviously, I've read like Gary V's. I'm trying to think of some recent ones. I actually read the Diary of a CEO one. I
Oh
know a
yeah, I
lot of
read
people
that.
like don't like him, but it was actually a good book. I felt like he had some good advice in there.
I think actually no, I read the old one, the Sexy Millionaire, Sexy
Oh,
Happy
okay.
Millionaire, something like that.
Right. Yeah, this one's just called The Diary of a CEO, I think. It's like his rules for business,
Hmm.
and there's some really good concepts in there. I know a lot of people don't like him; they find him annoying or they think he's like a fraud or whatever. But I think if you just hear him out, like hear his business, he's obviously like a smart businessman,
Yeah.
so you can take some good advice from that. Let me see him at Audible actually, because that will tell me what I've been listening to
Oh yeah,
recently.
of course. Oh man, there was a book. Again, it's somewhat spiritual, but it's not all
Hmm.
the way spiritual. It's not crazy. It's just a guy who decided to surrender. He calls it to surrendering to life. It's called the Surrender Experiment.
Right.
And he basically just let himself go with the flow of life, even when he felt resistance in his in his head, where his mind was like, maybe don't do that. But
I mean,
something
just
just
like
said,
saying yes to everything.
kind of, not stupidly though.
Right.
But he would also meditate for many hours. Meditation was a huge part of his practice to really be present and ground himself. But
Yeah.
it's crazy because everything in life just worked out for him. He went from struggling as a university teacher to starting a construction company to buying some land, which expanded to many, many acres, to eventually found a passion in coding, started programming, and built like a super successful software company that's worth hundreds and hundreds of millions.
Right.
And it's all
That's
down to just surrendering to life rather than overthinking things, just kind of just going with the flow.
yeah.
That was
I'm
it,
gonna
it's quite
I'm gonna
a
check that one
fast
out as
read,
well.
but
Surrender into life.
it's called The Surrender Experiment.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
There's
gonna
so
check that
many
out.
books on here that I haven't finished because they're just so boring, bro. I
Oh,
tell
I've
you
got
a
a
good
big list of books as well.
same. Green
I
Lights
read
was
it,
a good one by Matthew
Matthew
McConaughey.
McConaughey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that. I really like that one. I read the 12-week year. That was a good one to kind of
Oh yeah, I
get you
want to read that
motivated at
book.
the start of the year. I saw quite a few people reading that. Animal Farm. All you need to know about the music business. I feel like that's an essential one for producers.
Yeah.
Um, I've read David Goggins. They're more like
Oh yeah,
motivational ones, I
classic.
guess. James Smith has actually got some good books. I don't know if you follow him.
I've seen his
He was a
YouTube.
PT, and then he just does like honest content where he's not like trying to sell shit. He just calls people out on some bullshit
Hmm.
and just kind of runs with like what science is out there, like what studies are out there. So I do like him.
Hmm.
I listen to him. Um, Psychology of Money. I can't even remember that
Oh
one.
yeah, I haven't read that one yet.
Yeah, maybe I've just added that to the list, but I haven't actually read it yet. I don't think anyway. 4 Hour Work Week. Obviously, that's it.
Hmm.
That was one of my favorites, like a while back. I don't know if everything's relevant now because things have changed so
Yeah.
much. But when I first read that, that kind of changed my. It just really opened up my mind to what we could do. So yeah, that was good. Um, Obviously the classics like the Compound Effect, Atomic Habits, 50th Law.
Oh yeah.
That one's like
Robert
sitting
Greene's
behind
books
me.
are very I don't remember the word, but there's so much information in them.
Yeah, I need to read these other ones. That was the only one I read. I read that like a while back just because it was like 50 cent, and
Yeah.
then I started reading more about Robert Greene. He's actually a real smart guy, isn't he?
Oh man,
He's
yeah.
bringing out a new book.
His books are incredible, but they're just a lot.
Yeah,
I was listening to The Laws of Human Nature. That audio book took me like 2 months to finish through.
did it?
It
Just that
was so
intense.
long. Yeah, it's good though. It's really, really good.
The Chimp Paradox is good as well. That was one of the
Mm.
first like self-help books I read. Kind of helps you understand the mind a bit more. Did you watch Robert Greene on Theo Von's podcast? He's always
Nah.
got some random people on there, man. Because it's Theo Von, you just expect him to have stupid conversations with people, but he's actually quite a deep thinker. And then when he has people on like that, like he's had Jordan Peterson on before,
Hmm.
so whenever he switches things up and just has someone quite intellectual, it's actually a sick conversation because they're cracking jokes in between, and you wouldn't normally hear like I don't know Jordan Peterson just making jokes. You know what I mean? He's quite
Yeah.
serious. So that was a good one. But yeah, you listen to his one with Robert Greene. It's actually funny, man. He was just telling some like stories from back in the day when he was doing loads of drugs.
Oh
This
shit.
Robert Greene was anyway. But he was saying that what's his book? Is it 48 Laws of Power?
Yeah, I
Is
think
that the
there is
title?
one called that. Yeah.
I don't want to butcher that. 48 Laws of the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this was worldwide or in a certain state or country, but that book was like banned in prisons. And maybe all of Robert
Oh
Greene's
man.
were. So because the book was like so powerful, and I haven't actually read it. I'm gonna read it, but because of the concepts in there, they were like banning it in prisons because they didn't want prisoners to like read that and then come up with ideas to either control other prisoners or maybe like fight back against the guards. Because maybe some of it can be seen as quite manipulative,
Yeah,
but I
definitely.
think the way he wrote it was like not to follow those concepts, but just to be aware of them. I guess maybe some
Yeah.
of them you can apply to your own work, but maybe just be aware of the principles in case someone's doing them to you. I think that was his whole idea behind the book. But
Yeah.
it's mad that it was like banned in prisons. Like it's just a book. You know what I mean? It seems
But
crazy.
that it definitely makes sense. I feel like in the hands of someone that could
Mm,
really be used and
yeah,
powerful enough to probably control the prison, honestly.
yeah, yeah. I can't remember if I heard it right because I was driving when I was listening to it, but I'm sure he said I think there was like one person who's like a master of it, like who'd really studied the book and like knew all the principles and stuff. And in prison, like the guys had to keep them separate to everyone else,
Oh
almost like
wow.
solitary confinement, so they
So you
couldn't
never even
share
got to
these
practice
ideas with
it.
people because they might not have the book, but they've got all the ideas in their head, so they've basically
Yeah.
got their written copy there, which is
I
kind of
wonder
mad.
how he got found out.
I'm not sure.
How they
Yeah, I could
knew
be
how did
butchering
they
that
knew
story
this?
because I was driving, but it was something along those lines.
Yeah. Now his books are really good, but also I've noticed as well his stories that he tells in the books are old. He has really
Yeah.
old examples from like the 1700s, 1800s and stuff.
Oh, really?
But you can also buy the version which is where they strip out all the stories, so it's literally just the facts only.
Right. Sometimes I don't mind the stories though. They kind of add to it, or they help
Yeah.
you understand it a bit more.
I read the seduction one. It's not
The Art of
really
Seduction.
seduction as in like let's seduce my woman. It's more
Yeah.
again just kind of the psychology and but I can't lie, when I was reading it, I was like, damn, that person's like this, and I'm definitely more like this. And oh yeah, I
Mm.
remember when they kind of tried to do this, and it was kind of weird, but it's because they're more like this kind of archetype. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. That stuff it can be powerful. I remember. I remember when I got to uni and I met these guys and like they were all talking about this book called The Game, and it was meant to be
Mm,
something like that. Have you heard of it? That it's kind of like the Art of Seduction, I
yeah,
guess. I never actually read it, but I just remember hearing them talk about it, and they were like, I think we were going out one night, and he was talking to me about this book, and he's like, yeah, like I learned all these principles. Like there was what was this one example? He said something like, so when I compliment a girl, I kind of compliment, but kind of knock her down at
yeah,
the same time. Like he said something like, oh, I'm gonna go up to her and say, oh, I really like your dress. I saw it on another girl earlier, because then it's like, oh, my dress is nice, but you've seen it on someone else. So what's that? So he was literally showing me these techniques on the night, or like we were
did it
in the
work
queue,
for
for
him?
example. Yeah, and we were in the queue, for example, and he was saying, oh, the book said something like, don't directly talk to the girl, talk to the people with her, and
Yeah,
she was just like with these guys, and he didn't know if it was going to be like her boyfriend or what, but he just went up in the queue and he's ignored her and started speaking to the guys first, just getting friendly with them, and then the other girls like friends, her like girlfriends that were out, and then eventually like includes her. And then just by doing that, this girl was like kind of intrigued by him, and she was just like kind of with him all night because he hasn't gone straight in for the kill. Like, oh, I really like you. I think you're beautiful. Like, that's just gonna be like, go
mm,
away, you creep. But because he's almost put her to a side, she's like, I don't know. I guess the psychology is maybe, oh, why does he not like me? Like,
yeah,
now it's a chase. Now it's a game. Like, now I want to get him because he doesn't like me. And we're all like that, aren't we? If someone puts it on too strong, you're almost like, so even if someone was trying to be your boy, right? And if they were gonna message you like every day, like, bro, let's chill, you know what I mean? Like, if
yeah. It'd
someone's
be
like
weird,
too
isn't it?
intense, you can be like, just relax, man. But yeah, it's interesting concepts. I haven't actually
Yeah,
read the Art of Seduction or that, but I might
I've
read
never
them.
read the
Just
game, but I've heard so much
no,
stuff about it. So many. I guess back in the days, that book was almost seen like magic.
yeah, because that was obviously before socials, before people talking about it on there. So people were reading that like this is the secret.
Yeah,
So people were just really following it.
I remember hearing of some technique called peacocking, where it's like you dress a little bit weird, but it
Yeah,
gets
yeah,
all the
yeah.
attention when you step in a club or something like that.
Like a mad hat or painting your
Yeah,
nails black or something.
yeah,
I've heard of that concept. I've got one boy, right? So I used to work with him, and I feel like he's doing that now. Like in work, he wouldn't dress like out there or anything. But I went to see him like recently, and this guy's wearing like a fedora and some leather pants. I'm like, bro, what's going on? And he was like, nah, trust me. Like whenever I go out just like this, like people look at me like I'm weird first, but
mm,
then people just start speaking to me because they're intrigued. Because he's like tatted up and he's got a fedora on, like long hair. It just looks so different to how I know him. But
yeah,
it's almost like he does it on purpose because people do come up to him. At first, they're a bit unsure. Like they'll see him walking and be like, "This guy's weird," and then give it some time. They'll come up to him. Maybe he's ordering a drink and they'll be like, oh, your hat's interesting, or they'll start speaking to him about something, and then obviously you can just
mm,
start chatting to see he's normal, and then just goes from there. So I guess it does work, but I
Yeah.
ain't got it in me to throw on some leather pants and a fedora and give it a go.
Nah.
I'm not trying to go out like that. That'll
Nah,
be
yeah,
mad. If you
that's a
guys see me
big
pulling up to
statement.
a session with some leather pants and like vest with loads of like shark tooth necklaces and a fedora, just
What
send me
happened
back
to
out.
Jay? Jay took
Yeah.
some ayahuasca and changed on us. Switched up.
Yeah. Yeah, each to their own, I guess.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
it's crazy.
I've got like a big list of ones that I need to read. I'm slowly
Yeah.
getting through them.
I tell you what, I do like a biography though, like a good
Mm.
autobiography, because it's easy to listen to. It's just one long continuous story.
I haven't listened to one in a while. I remember you posting the Logic one saying that was
Yeah, the
sick.
Logic
I've
one
been
was
meaning
good,
to read that.
but I'm a Logic fan. I think that's why I really enjoyed it as well. Because I remember like seeing the come up. Because
Yeah.
for some reason, I can to us he felt very. I always remember this. To me he was very underground. This was like early. I think we was
I
talking
remember
about
it
this.
back then.
Remember 2011? But what was those days called again? Like, oh yeah, like that Piff and rappers kind of
Mm.
blowing up on YouTube and stuff like that. So it was really early
Yeah.
days. And I remember like coming home from school and watching like a Logic vlog and thinking, oh man, this is so sick. He's living a life. And then I remember first day of sixth form college, and there's just this really quiet dude in the back, and I was a quiet dude as well. So we're just sitting next to each other, but not talking. And then
Yeah.
for some reason we just got everyone thought he was weird, and we just got talking, and he's like, "Oh, who do you listen to?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't even think you're gonna know him." I was kind of on that one, like, "Oh, you're not gonna know him. You're not gonna know about this rapper." Who you been listening to? I'm like, "Oh, there's this rapper called Logic," and then he's like, "Logic," and I'm like, "What? You know Logic?" And he's like, "Bro, I love Logic," and then we kind of just bonded over listening to Logic. Every day we
Yeah.
come in school, like, "Oh, you listen to the new Logic drop," so we was huge fans of him. So that's why I think I really enjoyed the book, because there's moments where he's talking about like vlogging on YouTube, but how he was really broke and stuff like that. But from the
Mm.
outside looking in, you would never have known. And like
That's
his early
interesting.
tours
Yeah, I
and that.
remember Logic in the early days with his like when he barely had any budget for music videos. I can't
Yeah,
remember how I stumbled across him, but I do remember him from back then. Then he basically went to a superstar, didn't he? He went
completely blew
huge,
up.
man.
Yeah, he went. I think like 2018, he had a couple of hit songs, and then he signed that crazy, crazy deal at the time
What
with
was his
Def Jam.
deal? I didn't
I
actually read
think it
it.
was like maybe 2 or 3 albums, but it was for 30 mil.
30 mil.
Yeah.
Jeez. For two
So
albums.
I want to say 2 albums. Maybe in the book it might say something different, but I'm pretty sure it was for 30 mil.
I knew he had a crazy story because he raps about it as well, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's a mad story. I don't even want to say too much if you end up
Yeah.
reading it, because there's a lot to discover.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna take that in.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's an easy read as well.
Yeah.
Nothing
Did
crazy.
he write that? Or did he have someone do it for him? Like an editor? Usually people have an editor at least, don't they?
Yeah, I think the process is usually they sit down with someone who it's like they just tell their whole complete life story on all the
Yeah.
stories, and then they kind of just record it down and write it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's probably for the best, really, because not everyone's an amazing writer. And to be able to take it in
Yeah,
properly, you kind of need someone to put it in a certain way.
definitely. I don't know. Let's say I was to release an autobiography in the future. I don't know if I'd actually want to sit down and write that myself. I'd rather
Yeah, that would
just
be
tell
intense.
someone. Yeah,
That would be intense. That's a different skill set as well. But by that point, chat. Imagine how Chat GPT is going to be. You could probably right now you can just talk to it, can't you? So you could probably just tell that your whole story and it'll write it for you.
true.
Have you been
Turn
using the
turn
new
my life
update?
story into an interesting book.
Yeah.
Probably could do it for you.
Have you been? Do you use it?
Yeah, I use it for stuff. I use it if I'm writing a YouTube video that needs a script, then I
Yeah.
might use it to help me write the script. Sometimes when I'm being lazy and I need to respond to an email properly,
Yeah.
I tell it little stuff. Biography. I needed to write like a quick overview of who I am. ChatGPT, this is who I am. Write it for me, so it sounds good.
Do you use the paid version as well?
Nah. What's the difference?
So on the new version, I paid for it for this month just to see what it's like. But they
Hmm.
release some updates, so you can. I don't know if this is brand new, but you can just talk to it like you're having a conversation now. Like you just press the microphone button, and for example, when I was in Rome, I was just saying, oh, I'm in Rome. I'm trying to speak to the waitress and ask her for the bill. Like, what should I say to her? And she's just like, oh, when you're asking for the bill, the polite way to do it is just scusi, il conto per favore, or whatever it is.
Mm.
And then I just say it. Or I was like, say if I was walking around and you saw like a landmark or a statue or just anything, you can take a picture and then draw on it and like point to the statue or point to whatever it is. You could even like take a picture of your speakers and then point to the tweeter and then just drop it in and say, "What's this?" And they'll say, "Oh, the thing you're pointing to is the tweeter in the speaker. This is what it does, blah blah blah." Or if you're pointing to a landmark, it will say, "It looks like you're in Rome. This is the landmark of blah blah blah," and it will just
Oh
give you
wow,
everything in
that's sick.
detail. It's pretty crazy. I can't lie.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's like Google, but on steroids now. Don't even have
Yeah,
to type what you want. You just yeah, that's crazy.
literally.
I might have to get that.
And the when I saw them demo it, I can't remember which video it was. It might have been that metaverse page that posted it. But when they were doing the demo, I think he was speaking a different language, and he was with a girl who was speaking a different language too. So maybe he was speaking English and she was speaking Spanish, for example. And you could
Hmm.
say something like, "I'm with a friend right now. She speaks Spanish. I speak English. None of us speak each other's language. Can you help us communicate?" And the voice will just be like, "Yeah, sure." So then he'll start speaking and she'll repeat it. Chat GPT will repeat it in Spanish. Then she'll answer and Chat GPT will repeat it in English. So
Oh,
then
so
it's not like
it's even quicker
she has
than
to say
Google
something and
Translate.
then you wait and say, "Oh, translate this to English each time." It's just quick translation, so you can just have a full
Ooh,
conversation, which is pretty sick. Like imagine
yeah.
just being in Spain and you need to get around and it's like, right, okay, Chat GPT, I'm about to do this, and
And the
then
thing
it'll just
is,
communicate for you.
it's only gonna get better. Right now, imagine that that's cool, but then imagine when it starts picking up on nuances and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's pretty good with like it seems pretty advanced at the moment. And then yeah, imagine years down the line, you'll just have it. I wonder when we're gonna stop having phones. There will definitely come to a point where we're like, man, remember when we used to carry these fucking bricks around with us?
Yeah.
That's
Oh
surely coming
man.
up soon, whether it being a contact lens or a chip like Neuralink, but everyone's gonna have it at some point
Yeah. Oh man, I don't
because you
know.
won't want to get left behind, would you?
You can't
It's
get
scary
left
to think.
behind. Whenever you get left behind, you
Yeah,
eventually have to catch up. No
you
one's
do
using a
like
Nokia phone anymore, really. Probably like one
exactly.
in a million
Yeah, unless
out of
yeah, because
choice.
I was thinking maybe we'll be older at that point, but I don't even think we will. Like, imagine what it will be like in 10 years. Like, because
Yeah,
things
I
are just
think
advancing like so rapidly.
it's probably going to be quicker than we even think.
Yeah.
10 years ago, we was typing on Blackberries, like physical
Mm-hmm.
buttons. Now it's just no button. Like, remember when they brought out the iPhone that didn't have a button and we was all like, what the hell is that? How are we going to do
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah. And they might ease us in. It might be something, some sort of chip at first that you can remove. Like, say, all right, you don't want to be part of this now. Let me just take it out. It might just be like a clip on your wrist or whatever it is. But then the next step after that will be something like Neuralink, where it's actually embedded in you and you can't take it out. They tell you can turn
Yeah.
it off, but can you really turn it off? It's kind of scary to
Then
think because
how far are we going to take it? Do we implant a and was it Neuralink or something?
Neuralink,
And then what's it going to do? Just do we just download information? We don't even have
I
to learn no
guess.
more.
Well, they're testing it now, aren't they? That guy who's able to basically control his laptop with his mind. Like, how fucking crazy is that when you think about it? Like, imagine you as a kid thinking that is some like comic stuff, like some superhero stuff. Like, you can control something with your mind. But now
Mm.
it even seems normal to people. Like, you see it and it's like, oh yeah, of course, it's Neuralink. It's mad that that works. But you're not like, yo, someone's controlling it with his mind. Like, no one's going crazy. It's just like, yeah, it's kind of mad. Scroll on to the next video. So, man, fast forward for like 5, 10 years, it'll be crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's also we're, we're heading down this road, and then what purpose will we have anymore? It seems like everything
Yeah,
will get taken away. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
In
It's
a
scary
way.
to think, man. Especially for like kids now, because we grew up in like a good time where we played outside, then we had phones, and then we had all this AI technology now. But at least we've experienced everything. But kids growing up now who have always had AI or
Hmm.
have always just had some sort of like metaverse to go in, never really had those like proper human interactions of like just playing outside and just actually being a kid.
Yeah, but I
So
guess that's kind of useless for them now. What's the point of even doing that when you
yeah,
don't even have to? That's like us trying to imagine if we just put this back to music, us learning how to record on tape. It's like it's cool gimmick, but why?
yeah, it's true.
But I don't know. I went down. I was just thinking in my head. Yeah, imagine you implant a neural link, and then when it comes to music production, you could just think a melody, and then pretty much that chord progression just comes out. You wouldn't even
Mm,
have to learn how to play the keys. You just think melodies now.
that's pretty crazy actually, and that could easily be a thing.
Yeah, that is
Imagine walking
insane.
in a room and you just sat there. It's like, what you doing, bro? It's like just making a beat. You're just not even moving.
Just controlling MIDI notes with your mind.
Just sat there with your eyes rolling back. It's like, yeah, I'm just neural linked up, bro. Just cooking up.
Mad.
Laugh about it now. Watch in 10 years when we're talking, probably will be a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know when I'd
Well.
do it though, because like if they offered it me now, like, oh, we'll offer a neural link to you, I'm like, no chance of you putting anything in my brain. You're not going near it.
Mhm.
But then the more that people do it, the more normal it will become. And
Yeah.
then you will feel left behind eventually. Because you think apps are listening to you now. Like I'm like 100% sure TikTok is listening to my conversations because you do certain things like you might search Nike Air Force One, and then all of a sudden you're getting ads for Nike trainers, which is normal. You expect that it's just retargeting, but there's 100% been times where I've just had a conversation with someone, and then all of a sudden my phone's recommending it when I've recommended it, or TikTok's putting a video there that's like related to what I've been talking about. I'm like, there's no way this is a coincidence. I haven't searched anything. I've just been talking about it. Um, but I was saying that and then thinking, if we're thinking that now, imagine what we'll be thinking when something's like planted in us. Like how
Yeah.
much they're controlling us then. Like eventually, can they control your thoughts? Can they tell you who to vote for and what to
Yeah.
think? Because how are you going to
That,
overpower
that
that?
that's the scary part. Who? Because there's always got to be someone who's going to be able to control this chip, right?
Yeah, someone's going to have the power,
Maybe one
or they
day they
might not. It
just
might
press a
not even be
button and
about
it
yeah,
activate this thought, and everyone thinks this thought.
or it might not even be about controlling your thoughts that way. It might just be like we kind of know what you're thinking, but we're going to show you this type of content that's going to subconsciously lead you to end up thinking a certain type of way. Because then it's not like, right, all of a sudden think of this, but really over time, we're just going to keep pushing this agenda or type of content to you that's going to make you have these thoughts, which is trippy to think, man.
Yeah.
It's fucking sounds like apocalyptic.
Yeah. This is some futuristic stuff.
Yeah. Where would you like AI to go? As a producer, what would you like to see? What do you think would make your job easier?
If I'm honest with you, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe just, I mean, I do think they're on the right path with the AI mastering stuff. And it'd be
Mm,
sick if one day they could maybe just, you don't even have to level your beat too much. They just do the whole mix and mastering for you. Little stuff like
mm,
that helps. Or maybe, I know there's a few plugins that can do this, but maybe you're making a beat. The sound selection that they suggest is perfect. But even that's subjective because sometimes you want something that's completely different that gives it a whole different vibe. But
yeah,
still, that could speed up a workflow depending on like what your goal is for making a beat. Maybe you just need to make a beat really quickly. Maybe instead of having a whole list of plugins for a vocal chain, it just analyzes your voice and yeah, this is the right chain for you. Stuff
Yeah,
like that could be cool, just to help the process a bit.
that's definitely doable as well. Because, like you said, some plugins kind of do it at the moment, especially with things like Ozone and all those
Mm.
AI mastering tools. But they're just not fully there yet, are they? But I'm
Yeah,
sure they will
exactly.
be. Melodies
But
would, yeah, something with melodies would be good. Because there's
mm,
certain things, like there's certain processes we do to try and like recreate a sound. Like, for example, I was on another call with that Mario Luciano last night.
mhm.
He was breaking down some samples. He was breaking down the 8 a.m. in Charlotte one, the Drake one, which was sick because that was one of my favorite Drake tracks in a long time. And then he was also breaking down one from Joyner Lucas and Benny the Butcher. And before he opened his projects, I was thinking, man, he must be doing so much processing to recreate that sound. Because there was one sample he showed me where it literally just sounded like it came from a record. Like it was
Mhm.
just, sometimes you hear like soul samples and you're like, yeah, it sounds cool, which I can kind of tell they're trying to recreate that sound. But this one literally just sounded like straight from a record. It was mad. And I thought, oh, he must have done so much processing to that. So many different like analog compressors, like all this. And then he pulled up the session and there wasn't much going on at all. There was
Mm.
like maybe one plugin. And I was like,
Was it just the way it was
how's.
recorded in?
Yeah, literally. So with the vocalist, for example, that he works with, he said that was like one of the main thing that helps. He's just got a really like powerful vocalist who comes from, I don't know if you said opera or drama background, but she can sing and she's from drama, so she knows how to kind of like play certain characters as well. So he'd
Mhm.
show us some records and be like, maybe some like old Wendy Reen stuff or whatever it is, some that is from the 60s. And they should be listening to it like, okay. And then when it's time to record, he'll just loop like his piano melody or whatever, and she'll just kind of freestyle over it. But she kind of like goes into character, so she almost has like the dynamics of someone from the 60s and just picking up like the little intricate details, like how they sing. So there's
Yeah.
that really helps. And then the positioning of the mic. So they
Yeah.
were doing, it was only her, but they needed, I think this was the 8 a.m. in Charlotte one. It was only her, but they needed to sort of recreate a choir.
Mhm.
So he'd have her record like close to the mic and then back, like here, then to the side, and then doing them in like different tones. One might be loud, one might be soft, one might be high, one might be low, until there's like 10 different ones. So there's things like that. And then obviously the type of mic that he's using. But even that, it's like, that's so many different steps. It's not a lot of processing afterwards, but it's a lot of steps. So I
Yeah.
wonder if AI can eventually just really recreate it. Like you could play a song from the 70s and be like, I want my melody to sound like this. Put the vocals in, I need the vocals to sound like this. And boom, it just does it. And it's got that exact sort of replicated sound.
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
Yeah. I don't think we're that far off, honestly. I feel like the more they keep doing this AI stuff, the better and better it's gonna get.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, it was sick to see his breakdowns. It got me
Mhm.
rethinking everything because I've been making a lot of soul samples recently just for the bundle, and I've been doing like a lot of processing because I don't
Yeah.
have analog gear, and the vocalist I used was only recording like one vocals just directly into the mic. But then it got me rethinking maybe the next batch I do will be like, right, I really need to think about the way things have been recorded and like
Mhm.
where the mic is, the positioning, just all the little details like that. I guess
Yeah.
that's what like separates someone like Mario to just any random producer that's making loops.
Definitely. Difference between the loops and just straight up samples. Not even
Yeah,
samples. He's making 60s records, you know?
yeah,
70s,
literally,
70s records. These feel like more than samples.
literally. But he was saying he spends so much time on each sample. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast, but I think over a month he might make like 12 loops, which to
Hmm.
some people might be like, that's nothing, but he spends so much time. And then he'll get people to replay certain parts like the bass, guitar, just maybe the stuff that he isn't strongest on. He'll just spend hours and hours on like just one sample. Whereas like
Yeah,
most producers today, they're just trying to bang out as many loops as possible. Just onto the next one. But he's definitely focused on quality more than quantity anyway.
hmm. No, I hear that.
But yeah, bro, might be a good time to wrap it up then.
For
We're
sure.
going more than an hour.
Cool, bro.
All right, man. Well, yo, appreciate everyone for listening. Hopefully next week we should have all three of us back, but
Hmm.
we'll see. Until then, much love, everyone.